Hello and welcome back to this episode at the Peak Results Academy podcast. I'm your host, Richard Fournier. And in this episode, I sit down with Christine Simpson. Now, Christine Simpson is a real estate agent with LePage Real Estate Services Limited in Toronto, Canada. Now, she's been in the real estate business for over 30 plus years. She's attained the top 1% of all agents within LePage Canada and is a lifetime member of the Chairman's Council with LePage. Now, in 2018, she was inducted into the Hall of Fame for LePage. Now, Christine's trademark brand, The Art of Real Estate, is synonymous with her style, elegance, and professionalism. She has built her business around her social network and is a classic example of niching into a particular area so that she can serve her clients to the best of her ability. Stay tuned for this amazing episode.
Have you ever wondered why some people thrive in all areas of their life? Welcome to the Peak Results Academy podcast with your host, Rich Fournier. Each week, we interview industry experts who consistently dominate in the fields of health, business, and beyond. Our mission is to share their personal struggles and strategies so that you can create your own peak results. Welcome to the Academy.
Hey everybody, Rich Fournier here for the Peak Results Academy podcast. I'm your host, Rich Fournier. And today I'm really excited to have Christine Simpson with us. She is a very high-producing agent in the Toronto market with LePage. She's had a very outstanding career in real estate in Toronto. And thank you so much, Christine, for being on the podcast today.
My pleasure.
Since this podcast is about creating a peak result in business and in life, I do want to talk about, introduce, or at least share a little bit about what you've accomplished over the past 30 years. And I mean, you've been in top 1% out of 18,000 real estate agents with LePage. You're a lifetime member of the Chairman's Council with LePage. You were inducted into the Hall of Fame with RLP in 2018. That's quite an accomplishment over 30 years.
Thank you.
So very few people actually ever accomplish those types of numbers. And of course, this podcast is really trying to figure out why has someone produced at the level that they're producing at? And that's really why I wanted to chat with you today. So thank you for being with us. It is a strange time, however. We're in the midst of COVID, or the tail end of COVID, or the eye in the storm of COVID. And how are you dealing with this insanity in the Toronto market?
Actually very well. Physically, my physical space, I'm not well because I'm a very scheduled person, and I've had to come home in 30 years of real estate. I had never gone on MLS at home, ever, turned on a computer. I look at my house as my safe space when I'm home. I love my husband and I want to dedicate my time to him, and I don't want to be that agent who at 10 o'clock at night goes, oh my God, did someone slip a listing in and broker load and it's perfect for my client. Well, you know what, at 10 o'clock at night I can't do anything, but I can spend time with my family. So being at home and going on MLS, it's actually created a little bit of stress for me and anxiety because it is my safe spot. And every time I walk by my dining room table, I go, oh my God, did I send that disclosure for the showing? And then I go, no, go to the gym, keep your structure, keep your schedule.
You know, I get that. You know, we're up here in the Barrie market. We are in real estate. And, you know, I have 3 girls at home. I have a retail space for my business. And I'm by myself. There's no one here right now. So I've had to sneak out to come here because there's no way with 3 kids at home screaming and yelling and that I can perform at a certain level. So I definitely can relate to that.
I actually give tremendous credit to all the parents who are homeschooling at home. I just have this funny feeling that there are going to be huge Christmas presents for teachers this year.
You know,
parents have learned a very interesting lesson.
We have. I mean, my girls are wonderful, but to educate and to help them go through the process has been, you know, very challenging for my wife and myself, mostly my wife, because I'm still out doing the things that I need to do. We have teacher clients, so I message them all the time saying, thank you for what you do. Gives me a newfound
improvement. No kidding.
Now, you've been in the business of real estate for, 30 years now. And
30 years and 4 months.
30? Oh, no.
Who's counting?
So maybe you don't mind sharing with us a little bit how you got started in this game of real estate, because most people don't wake up and say, wow, I want to be a real estate agent when they're young.
Well, I wasn't young when I became a real estate agent. So there's the first twist. No, I was in the garment industry before. I actually did fashion merchandising and sales in the garment industry and lived through the 80s, which was the best decade ever to be in the garment industry. I traveled extensively. I opened up clients in New York. I spent a ton of time traveling and going back and forth to Europe and across Canada, and just loved it, and fell into all that fun stuff with Studio 54 and craziness in the 80s. It was a great life. And then in 1987, I think it was, free trade was announced. Right. And being a domestic company, I went and sat on the beach in Portugal for 10 days in the Algarve, and I went, oh my God, free trade is going to kill the Canadian garment industry. So I came back. I gave my employers 2 years notice. And in 1989, I guess I was sort of unemployed. So I'm one of those people, I do like my life and living and seeing the world. So I took some time off and popped back in and out of my office there and went, well, I've got to do something. And actually, a friend dared me to go into real estate. And I said, well, I will do it, but fundamentally I'm lazy, because if you can sell something, it's, the old adage, if you can sell a refrigerator, or you can sell a car, you can sell a dress, you can sell something. So on that dare, I said, well, if you think I'm going to be so good at this, why don't you enroll me in classes and pay for it? So they did. They enrolled me in Ryerson, which I could walk to. I was living in the annex at that point. So at that point, it was easy to be a realtor. You went to week 1, you wrote the exam on Saturday, then you went to week 2, and you did 2 weeks and you wrote the exam, and then you went to week 3 and you wrote the exam, and you became a real estate agent. So technically you got your license. So then it was December, and I went, oh my God, I am a bit of a social animal. I went, I don't really want to think about this now. So in January, the friend who dared me said, okay, we paid for your courses, you did stellar, like make some effort here. So I actually spent the month of January, I went around and interviewed with Royal LePage, Kingsway National, who else? There were small brokerages. I can't remember the name, of Caldwell Bank or whatever. Anyway, I did my due diligence. I went around and I chatted. And a friend of mine from the garment industry actually said, well, don't waste your time going to Johnston and Daniel, because they don't hire new agents. Well, at that point, I decided I'm going to be a Johnston and Daniel agent, because I don't care if they don't hire new agents, they're hiring me. So I called all my friends and my peers. I'm not originally from Toronto. We're in the West End, Bloor, West Village, High Park, Kingsway, that I grew up with in college and in the garment industry. And so I went, well, there's a Johnston and Daniel office out there, so I think I'll give them a call. So Judy Stacy, who was the manager then, answered the phone and said, well, I'm very sorry, we don't hire new agents. And because I was older and had been in sales a long time, I pointed out to her that as a manager, she didn't know who she was turning down. And her job was to interview me. So I got the interview. She said, you know what, Christine, you're right. You do have a sales history and a background. She said, but you have to meet with Jamie Gardner. So I had breakfast with Jamie Gardner in Yorkville. And he said, yes, you can work at Johnston and Daniel, but you have to work in the West End. And I said, that's perfect. And that's how I ended up there. And of course, Royal LePage bought us in 1994. And so technically, I started with Johnston and Daniel, but I ended up at Royal LePage. So my full career technically has been with Royal LePage.
And you look back, and when you guys started 89, that was the start of an interesting time in the real estate.
Well, it was 1990, actually. February 13th, 1990, I walked into my first Johnston and Daniel meeting.
And it wasn't that the start of a little bit of insanity in the real estate market?
That was, I remember the older agents in the office saying things like, oh my God, we went to our cottage in Lake Couchiching May 24th weekend on the Friday, and we came back Tuesday, and it was like the tap turned off. And I just went, really?
Right?
That was 1989, May 1989.
Okay.
And I went, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to learn this. But it was actually quite a great time to start in the business, because we were still doing tear sheets back then and had the books.
Had the books.
And they were just starting to do computerized MLS. So I started with Treb on the computer, and that was really fantastic for me.
You know, when you look back at over these years and the amount of change that's occurred in the business, now you can't call people, you can't do so many different things in terms of marketing. If you were to get started today, because I'm sure you cold called people at the time, or maybe you door knocked, or you had a circle of influence.
I have never made a cold call in my life, and I have never door knocked. I am a social marketer.
Wonderful. So let's go there if you don't mind. That is amazing, you know, because I moved up to an area in Barrie, Ontario, didn't know a soul. And if it wasn't for the internet, there's no way I could have got started in this business without knowing anyone in this marketplace. And everything I've done has been online.
Wow.
And, you know, that was a journey into itself, learning how to utilize the internet appropriately and using video to create digital personalities on the back end. And we did this without circle of influence and 3 kids at home. But I couldn't imagine trying to build a social network and then trying to sell real estate inside of that social network. Like, what was the process for you to get started in that, do that?
Everything in life is timing. And it's funny when people come into my office, which they do a lot of the younger agents, and say, can we sit down and chat with you? I say, absolutely, not a problem. And when someone comes to talk to me about getting into real estate, I ask them, where is your sphere of influence in their life today? Like, my core sphere of influence before I got into real estate had already purchased their first home.
Got it.
So I was their trade-up agent. Whereas if someone's getting into real estate right now, let's say they're 50 years old and everyone's already in their probably second home, and you're going to wait 10 to 15 years to trade them out of that home and downsize them. So I say, look at where your world is right now and the people around you. What can you draw on? Like, if you're a young agent and you know that everyone you went to university with or college or whatever is now starting to look for condos or first-time buys, that's a fantastic time in your life to be there and to start social marketing them, because get out there, be with them, talk real estate, but do it in a soft sell way. I was never a pushy person. I was fortunate. There's a small school in the west end of Toronto called Kingsway College School. And my closest friend, who I met the 3rd week I moved to Toronto in 1974, was one of the founders of the school. And starting a school is an ominous job, and the school is well acclaimed right now. It's a wonderful independent school. But back then we did everything. Like, we showed up, we did the auctions, we did everything. And for someone like me, again, it was timing and luck that I met this whole core of parents that were all about getting their kids really well educated with the fundamentals. And I was just at that school helping, you know, going to the lip sync contest, supporting the graduations, because we only had 50 students to start. So that really spearheaded, and some of my best clients have come from there. And it all came from, they said to my best friend, who they knew, they didn't really know me, they just knew me as, you know, Christine's friend Christine type of thing, because her name is also the same as mine. And they said, do you think she would help us? Because I was an unknown. The west end of Toronto is really small, and there's a million real estate, not a million, but there's thousands of real estate agents, and they all went to the same high school. But it's a very private neighborhood as well, and they wanted someone outside of the community. And I was that person, yet I was giving back so much to that community. They all felt comfortable. I mean, the best compliment I ever got is one couple was looking for a house with me. We looked for 5 years to find their second trade-up house. And I was at a cocktail party at the school, and I'd sold them a house 5 years in. And someone came up to me and said, oh my God, you didn't tell me that so-and-so was looking for a property. And I looked at them and I went, well, that's why you will use me. Because I treat my business like a lawyer or a doctor would treat their business. It's no one's business but theirs. And I always say it's my client's story to tell, not mine.
So was there a formalized thought process for you to start working within this new circle of influence, right? Like, did you really strategize and say, I'm going to do this event, this event, this event, this event, and then I'm going to, like, was there marketing, back end marketing, or
well, actually, the school really launched me because every time they would do a big gala to raise money, they would put a thank you in the program to me for helping. And I didn't do any marketing except I showed up. I'm a social marketer. People got to know me. People got to see me. They saw that, you know, at one point, 90% of the student body called me Auntie Chris.
Wow.
And people always came up to me and said, you don't have children in the school and you don't have children. And like, thank you so much for everything you do. And I went, wow, like, I'm just doing it because I loved all the kids. I knew them all. At that point, you know, after a couple of years, a student body of 50, 75 kids, you know, every parent and every child.
I have one of my children at private school, and I can relate to the closeness that we experienced.
Today I have a closing on one of the kids from that school that I met the parents in 1997 and followed that child through the school. And I just literally, he's closing on his second house with me today.
Question on that note right there. How do you keep in contact with all of those people? Do you have a strategy inside there to do that? Because I think, you know, this stage of the game, you've been around for so long, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of agents now going after your database. Let's be honest, right?
Always.
So is there something you're doing right now in the back end? Because there's so much information, so many ways to keep in contact with people, so many new websites that people log into and then they get back end marketed and all these things. Like, how do you navigate that now?
Well, it's really going to be simple. It's going back, you know what they say in grade 1, if you can put the puzzle pieces in the puzzle, it's there. One of my best things I've ever done in my life is invest in Post-it notes. I send them out not this year because of COVID and you can't mail things out. They don't want mail, but people call me up all the time and say, Christine, I'm running out of your Post-it notes, and I drop them off a package. To me, if I had to invest in one thing, it would be Post-it notes. As simple as it is. I see people, and again, I don't go out of area. I'm really quite a focused person. I go out of area by choice only, and I always qualify it. I don't know the school districts. I can do the homework for you. I can do whatever. And they say, no, Christine, we just want to spend time with you. You're so much fun. Because I don't change for anybody. It doesn't matter if you're a $500,000 condo or a $4 million house. This is what you get. There's no pretense. There's no nothing. I see every property in my trading neighborhood. I know most houses. When I go on MLS, I already know the house. A lot of times they've traded 3-4 times, and I'll go, wow, that traded in like 1998. I think I remember that. I wonder what they've done. And I go back and check the history, and I always shock myself that I remember, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty because you kind of focus on an area. You're just not.
Yeah, I'm not all over the world, and you can't be all over the world. They always say you wouldn't go to an optometrist to have your teeth cleaned.
Right.
You know, like you have to, personally, I think specialization is still good for someone like me because I do know my area. I mean, people ask me things. I do a lot of off-market business because I'm very aggressive that way. Like if someone says to me they want to live on, you know, Bobby Point, I'll know of the 10 houses. Like I've got 10 houses right now that I'm perpetually dropping things off at, saying, because I do have clients looking to live on that street. And I've done a lot of off-market on that street. And, you know, there's an advantage to both the buyer, the seller, and a lot of privacy issues. Again, it's amazing. People will say, you know what, we don't want the disruption. We don't want our children or whatever. We don't want to have to get our house ready. If you are willing to pay us fair market value and we can get this done, we're happy.
And you wonder with that strategy going forward, just on a side note, if you don't mind me interjecting, off-market strategy in the era of COVID, you wonder if there will be more people that will look at wanting to be an exclusive or an off-market strategy so they don't have to deal with all the health precautions.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of business that is traded, especially in the higher end market, off market, that we don't know about. I mean, I just had a large listing in the West End and set a record price out here. And when I pulled up the stats from last year, and I went from 9 million up, and I went Burlington all the way to Oshawa up to King City, Aurora, only 14 houses traded over $9 million last year in that price point. Like, it sounds weird because it's such a big geographical area, but that's all that traded. But other houses traded, and they just aren't on market.
Fair enough. Fair enough. If you were to advise someone today to get started with the amount of competition that we see today, the open architecture of all the data, the ability for a consumer to bypass you completely, to get all the information that they need, what would you say to someone trying to start in business today? How do they?
I think realtors, I think you have to know your stuff. You have to know your community. I think realtors really are more important today because there is so much information. I mean, my business is 50-50 buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
There hasn't ever been a buyer walk into a house and go, you know what, Christine, sorry we dragged you out here. We thought this would be great. But they can't tell that the basement height is 5'6".
Right.
They can't tell that. And I go, well, I told you. And I said, you should sort of listen to me. And they say, but we had to see. And I say, you know what? You have to do the legwork. It's not an easy business. And I think there's a lot of legwork that really has to be done. And you can't be lazy about it. But in the same breath, people come in and go, oh my God, it looks so much bigger in the pictures. And I go, well, HDR cameras, wide angle lenses, everyone is trained to make these places look bigger. But you're dealing with an 18-foot wide semi. How big can it be? Like, you have to navigate it for them. And I think just, when I walk through a house, I always go to my home inspections because I learn something at a home inspection every time I go. And I walk into a house and I go, wow. At one point when oil tanks were the big thing, I think I had 6 buried oil tanks in the month of June, when that all started in 2003. And I just went, and now I walk into a house, and when I walk around the house, the first thing I look for is the clip marks in case there was an oil tank.
That's right. That's right.
And I point that out and I say, you know what, there was an oil tank here. And they say, how do you know? And see, it's that little bit of extra value that you can add. And you can say, well, when was the oil tank taken out? Was it an oil furnace? Was it buried? Was it inside? You can sort of see the block in the basement. There's so much you can add to the conversation without just being on the internet.
That's right. And when you look at today, do you utilize the internet to connect with buyers and sellers, or is it do you rely mostly on that circle of influence and social marketing inside?
Well, it's funny. I have a very small team. I have 2 fantastic people who work with me. And I'll put my little jump in here. My administrator left me last August. So anyone out there who wants to come work in the West End of Toronto, please God, send me your resume. Anyway, no, I have 2 fantastic people who work with me. Suzanne Hamilton, who's been with me for 6.5 years. I knew her socially. She got into the business. She's like fantastic. And then I just, another person joined my team, Barb Kirby, who is a 32-year veteran of the business, younger than I am, but lives and breathes real estate. So I'm lucky that I've got great people around me. But I said to them, I think a couple of years ago, I said, you know what, the internet is all well and good. We all get inundated with hundreds and hundreds of emails and you get lost. I said, do something crazy. Pick up the phone and call them. Because people are so happy to hear your voice, because all they do now is respond to text, respond to emails, look at all the spam we get, and you pick up a phone and call someone and they just go, oh my God, like thanks for taking the time to call me. I hear a voice. And that's before COVID. With COVID, it's fantastic. For COVID, what I've been doing is I'm a flower person. At Easter, and we didn't know how long this was going to go, but about 15 people in my sphere who I would say were main spider web people, like the web starts in the middle and they've given me so much business, but I knew they'd be at home. So I had one of my local florists, green grocers, bring in fantastic hydrangeas. And just to get myself out of the house, what I did was I picked up flowers and I just dropped them on their porch, rang their doorbell, stood a solid 12 feet back and just went, happy Easter. I know you're not able to put your house together and you might not be with your family, but just thinking about you. It was labor intensive for me, but it got me out of the house too. And I'm an out person. I'm not a sit at the desk kind of person. I'm always out. I mean, people laugh I don't online bank because every time I go to my bank, I talk to people and I run into people I know.
That's right.
I shop once a day for groceries, which is so anti-COVID, but every time. Yesterday, I went to pick up dinner for my husband and I in my local store I shop in. I ran into 3 agents and we had great conversations. We chatted for 45 minutes, just car to car, literally talking about the market and staying connected with my colleagues and my peers. It was so important, and it's important to them and it's important to me. And I see my clients. I was in my mask in my little store and someone came up to me and they went, "Oh, Christine, the art of real estate. You don't know me, but you're still recognizable."
So how did that?
That's what I mean by social marketing. So
that person didn't know you. Well, they knew you, but you'd never met them. So you must be doing some external marketing.
Well, I print. I have for years, not as much now, but print advertise.
Okay.
A lot. I mean, my face has been out there. Other than my COVID hair, my hair has not changed since probably 98. I keep it. And people come up to me and go, "You're Christine Simpson. I recognize you by your hair."
Right.
Wow. And I'm like, wow. Okay. Wow. Not changing anything other than the color.
Well, me too. I've slick hair now. I used to be short. Now it's starting to white. So
now it's a lot of product.
Right. So that leads me to do you think as a new person, they should be doing a lot of print media in their local market?
I think that to do maybe a nice institutional ad to get your face out there, it would be well worth it. Even though people say print has gone the way of the dodo. Yes, all the young people are on the internet, on, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. But those young people are often going to the bank of mom and dad. And mom and dad want to know that you have validity and you are going to take care of their investment. And their investment is not only monetary, it's their child.
Right.
It's their biggest investment, is making sure that their kids are A-okay.
I was talking with a gentleman out of Oakville. He's on our podcast. You'll know him. But he still does 50,000, I think, postcards, big cards every single month.
Wow.
50,000.
Sounds like my friend, Mr. Cooper.
And yes. And we chatted about, and the reason why I bring this up, listen, I want to get into your mindset, why you perform, but the reason why some of my listeners are like, what do these people do every single day? They've been around for a long time. Like, what do they do? They must have a daily method of operation. And so Cooper, Dan and I were chatting, and he said it's so important because yes, there's the segment of the population that is online, but when you look at who's buying and who's selling today, at $1 million plus, to your point, it's probably someone who's in their 40s, 40 plus.
Late 30s,
but they're still looking at print. And they're like, who's in my market? And that really rang true for me because we haven't done any of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. And so, what works, what doesn't work. And so as I communicate with someone like you or Dan or Christopher or anyone in that space, there is no magic secret. It's all up to who you are and what you attract in your life based on who you're being. A little esoteric, but.
No, I know what you mean, but that's one of the pieces of advice I would give anyone, no matter what business they're in, is be authentic and be yourself. I mean, I have physically watched people in my trading area, literally their tone of voice changes when they're talking to a client or they're talking to another realtor. It's like, that is as phony as a $2 bill. Like, and people eventually will figure it out.
Right.
You just have to be yourself.
Yourself.
Be authentic, be yourself, and the right people like you will gravitate to you.
You know, years ago, I did this course and I was facilitating a course and tools, tips, tricks, lead generation, websites, and all these different things. And I had someone, and this started this whole venture of what we do today. You know, why I know what to do, why don't I do it? And then I realized that there was something more to this business, or something more to business than lead generation, tips, tools, tricks, and all the advertising that we do. There's an attractive factor that people become attracted to whoever is on the same, is it wavelength that they're on. And I could send out postcards to your neighborhood and you do the same thing, and we will attract two different people completely.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a very strong marketplace, and it's funny. There's usually 5 or 8 of us, let's say, if people are calling 3 people in.
Right.
And I never want to know who my competition is. But it's amazing the number of people that tell you who else they've had in. And I know immediately, I'm a very good read of people. I know immediately if I read the seller who's doing the interview, if they're going to go with me or my colleague who's maybe a little bit more numbers oriented and not as lifestyle oriented. I know exactly who's getting the listing. And as I said, the only thing you can't buy is time. And if I know I'm not getting the listing, I can be in and out of there in 15 minutes, because I know there's not a hope in this world that I'm ever going to have a symbiotic relationship with that seller and they're going to choose me, because I'm a strong, certain type of personality. And sometimes I actually say to them, I say, because I know it will be grief for me, I go, you know what, you might want to try this person. They might be a very good fit for you. I mean, there's enough business for everybody. I just want my share. I don't want greed. I'm not a greedy person.
Right.
And I just want to service the client. And if servicing the client, I mean, I always tell new agents, when we used to put clients in our car, buyers, the first thing I would always say to a new buyer, if I was taking them around, I've chosen these 3 houses on the parameters that you have given me. That's when we had 3 houses to show. And the first thing I say to them is, I've chosen them. Now, I'm a certain type of personality. And if after the end of these 3 houses, I don't feel I can service you and work with you to 100% because I do this 24/7 and it has to be fun for me, then I will refer you to an agent who I think will be better suited to you. Well, it's amazing. As soon as you threaten to fire somebody, they are putty in your hands and they become the people you want them to be around you. So control your environment.
Control your environment. Tony Robbins said, the minute you have 1% more certainty than the person in front of you, influence them in a direction.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very certain about what you want out of your life. Very, very, it's a real decision. I think this is something that I'm getting from you, is that you decided when you entered this business to be in this business. Were there times where you decide that you start to think, maybe I don't want to be in this business anymore? I'm
one of those people. I mean, I knew I loved the garment industry. It was great fun and it was a wonderful experience. I really love real estate. I've always said, and my husband would tell you the same thing, the minute I wake up in the morning and I begrudge going into the office or showing a house, I'm retiring.
You're right.
From this field, because there is nothing worse than someone who doesn't want to be present. And I want to be present for everybody. They deserve 100% of me.
It's a good lesson, actually. Christine, if I was to move to your area today and I said, Christine, my name's Rich Fournier. I want to get in the real estate business. What do I have to do for the next 12 months to be in the business and not go bankrupt? What would I have to do? How many people would I have to talk to every day? How do I access my network? What kind of advice can you give me?
I would say, what is your strength? What is your hobby?
Okay.
join that locally immediately. You're brand new. You need to go where there's people.
Okay.
I eat out 5 out of 7 nights a week in local restaurants. I can't tell you a hot new restaurant downtown, but I can tell you everything in the West End of Toronto. And people see me and people talk real estate and they see me out there. I shop locally. I clothing shop locally. I do everything within my community. And I think that's one of the key things. And that's why I'm well known, is because I'm always there.
Okay.
And that's the one thing I would tell people, like, join, if you're into fitness, join Body Buster Fitness, the local one. Like, meet those people that are going, or join the biggest club and get to know these people. Because that's how I'm a social marketer and people get to know me. I would do introduction flyers. I have a flyer that I send out every 2 months in 4 key trading areas. And it's funny, I started a part of one of those trading areas was 350 houses, and I used to mail walk it myself once a month, or my husband would do it, because that was in the 90s and there was no business. But you're out walking it, you're getting it done. Now, of course, I use the post, but I do stats on the neighborhood and I break it down into price point and type of house. So people get that, and I'll get a phone call every time I send out my flyers. I'll get a phone call from someone and they'll say, which house was that which sold for that? Or when you, between 2 and 2.5 million, you said there were 4 sales, which 4 were they? Like, people are curious. People want real information.
Got it.
And they want it localized. I mean, we all got the lovely CMHC Globe article from last week saying the market's going down by 18%. And I think I had 7 phone calls off of that Globe article, which had nothing to do with me. And by the way, I don't read the paper. And they said, what do you make of this? And I just went, I said, first off, you live in a very stable neighborhood. You are close to the subway. That 18% is taken across Canada. It has to do with Saskatoon. It has to do with, BC, northern BC. I said, those numbers, it's Newfoundland, those numbers are so skewed to just all of Canada. Yes, there are markets that might go down 18%, but it's not happening in Toronto. Right now, I think our market on semis in Bloor West Village, the last 4 semis that sold, all listed at $999, and they sold between $1,195 and $1,355.
Wow.
So that's a 25% increase last month in May in Bloor West Village.
Got it.
So it's you have to be realistic. And I tell people, stop reading the paper and stop believing it. Know your market and what's going on there. Don't generalize. Be a bit more specific. Niche down into particular areas. So you would, you'd be, if I was to come into an area, get to know as many people as I can. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about traditional farming, in an area with print media, statistics, working your way through that over time. Do you think that there's a period of time that you have to do something like that before you start getting some traction in an area? Well, in real estate school, they say have 6 months income. As far as I'm concerned, if you're going into real estate, have 2 years income, because that's how tough it is. And if you don't have that, then make sure your spouse has a really good job, or your partner, or whatever. I think you need a lot more, because it takes longer than 6 months to be known, especially if you're new to a neighborhood. Like, you're just going to start to get traction after about a year and a half. It's not for the faint of heart. And I think it is not for the faint of heart. No, when we entered a market, we didn't know anyone. Zero influence. Wife was at home with the kids and we just started. But you have a big advantage there, believe it or not. One of the things I've only ever said to myself and my husband, we have no children. I've said, you know what? All these people that have these kids in the local schools, like, they are so lucky. They have, like, immediately, you have 2-3 children. You've got 2-3 classrooms or 4 classrooms per grade. That's a lot of parents that you get to know. I mean, I often think to myself, if I had children, oh my God, I might have been really fabulous. We've done one deal. One deal in 4 years. Everything else is online.
You know, and that's
really.
yeah.
But something else that you might be too close.
You know what?
And I think that was an advantage.
That was our fault, Christine. That was our fault.
Oh, okay.
You know, that was our fault. We just didn't focus on that area, and it's probably that was a huge mistake.
Well, it's not even focusing on it. I think that, again, sometimes maybe you're too close because you do get a lot of personal information from people. And that's why I think in that little school that my friend started, I did well because I didn't have a vested interest. I didn't have to, you know, I had a vested interest only in the people and supporting the people. I didn't have kids in the school, so you didn't have to worry that little Cindy Lou Who and Johnny were going to fight in grade 3 and all of a sudden you were close friends and you're not any longer. I was just like an independent coming in to help.
Got it. Now your branding that you've created, the art of real estate.
Real estate, yes.
Love it. It's a big portion of your business, I'm assuming.
Well, it stems from my husband's a graphic designer, and he Warholed me. And the reason he Warholed me, and that's why I keep my hair the same way, because the Warhol picture is because I knew Andy Warhol. That was part of the glorious 80s. So we brought that into that, and I became the art of real estate. When we could send out solds and just listeds, every one would be a different art piece on the front with me, which was really quite interesting. But when I branded that, I checked into it because I wanted to own it. And Coldwell Banker owns it in the United States of America. So my patent lawyer and I said to her, well, I want it for Canada. And so we spent 2.5 years. I had to place ads in every small town across Canada in the newspaper where there was a Coldwell Banker office.
Wow.
To say, I've gone for the exclusive rights trademark of the art of real estate. Are you complaining? Are you using it? So it took me 2.5 years to get that registered. And so 4 times a year, my patent lawyer does a search to see who's using the art of real estate. And we send out our lovely, if it's a LePage agent, I give them a call and say, by the way, I'll send you my trademark. And if they're cocky and they say, well, have at it, come after me, I go, okay. And I call my lawyer and she sends them a letter. And of course, then they have to get a lawyer and they have to validate it. And it costs them a lot of money and it's sort of sport for me. But I do defend my trademark religiously.
Love the trademark. Whenever you want to get rid of it, let me know.
Well, a lot of people like it. It's funny. And it's funny, Christine Simpson is also a sportscaster. Mm-hmm. And we have a mutual friend and I own the name Christine Simpson. And through this mutual acquaintance, I should say an acquaintance, she always says, would you tell that Christine Simpson Realtor that if she ever wants to sell our name back, I want it? I go, okay, but I'm not likely to sell my name. I mean, that was the one piece of advice when the internet started in the early 90s that I gave to all the parents at the school. I said, do yourself a favor. This is coming. This is going to be so important because people were making up silly little email addresses like, I love my cat.com or whatever. I said, buy your children's name. Buy it and own it because in 20 years from now, when they're in business, they're going to want to own their name. So
it's great advice. Yeah. Great advice. Last few questions about your business today and how much of your mindset has played a role in your production level over the years? Do you do work on your mindset to keep it at a certain level to perform? Because competition is fierce in the Toronto market.
It is. It's crazy. I'm as I said, I'm a structured person. I have 3 passions in life. One is real estate, one is my husband, and one is diving. So I work to dive. And people know that about me. I just love to be underwater. It's where I'm happiest. But so I keep myself fit. I'm very scheduled. I get up every morning at 5:30. I have my hour chat with my husband. We have 32 ounces of coffee, watch a little bit of local news to find out what's going on. Then I immediately go down to my gym. I have a home gym. I'm on the treadmill. I do weight training. And then I come up. This hasn't changed in COVID. I come back upstairs. I get myself ready for work and I go out the door or I come down to my dining room table. And my day is set out I always think of 10 people I want to talk to in a day, and it's really random. It's really random. Sometimes I just pick up my phone as I'm driving, and I just spin the numbers, and I hit it, and I call them. And it's just out of the blue calls, because I love to talk to people. And then I've got the people that I have to call for business that I'm working with currently, or there's houses come out or whatever. And I'm a social person. I'm on the phone a lot, and I chat a lot.
And I think there's a lot of agents who are undercover agents, or they're in business and they're undercover people in business, right? Where they don't communicate every single day. This is a full contact sport that we're in. We have to talk to people. It's not always just about real estate, right?
And I also I call my colleagues as well, because I'm interested in them. Right. And I like to know what's going on. I like to call out to Burlington, or I'll call out to BC or Calgary or whatever, and I'll say, so what's going on out there? You know, I call my friends who live in Calgary, and I go, so, because they know what the pulse of the market is, and they're not realtors, but they're in other fields like banking and stuff like that. And I like to know what's going on in Alberta or in Newfoundland. And I think it's important to hear from the source as opposed to reading the newspaper.
That's great advice. Great advice. So you're very regimented. You do farming still. Post-it notes are a big deal. Your social network is your social capital.
Yes.
Right. And is there any other magical elixir things that you have that you do?
That's sort of as I said, I'm a social marketer. I mean, that was Jamie Gardner's whole thing at Johnston and Daniel. His whole thing was, Christine, be out there. Be out there, be out there, be out there. And he'd give me a thumbs up every time I saw him at the Royal Winter Fair in the box.
Got it.
Like, yes, you're in the right spot. Like, be seen.
Be seen, always be seen.
Tom Story has a great line, and great guy. I don't know if you've interviewed him, but a fantastic, I'm going to say a young realtor, but he seems like an old soul to me. He says, visibility beats ability.
Every single time. Yes, and Tom has agreed to come on. I think we are, is it this week or next week we'll be spending some time with Tom Story?
He's fantastic. I'm actually doing his video course right now. I think I'm his worst student, but I'm enjoying it. I must tell you, I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning things everywhere. I'm not good at video. I'm the only person I know who does live open houses on video and forgets to put the video on and walks through for 20 minutes before I figure it out. So, it's okay. Do this again. But he's fantastic and has a lot of wisdom. And again, I'm sort of glad I am where I am in my career, because if I was him, to keep up with that younger generation, the Brett Starks of the world, the Tom Stories, I mean, there's a lot of really fantastic young realtors out there. I mean, look at Matthew Reagan, an out of control, amazing human being. I mean, I have so much respect for them and what they're doing and the way they're changing the industry. I'm not trying to keep up with them on any level. I'm just trying to be knowledgeable.
You're trying to be knowledgeable. And I think, like you said, there are so many agents that aren't performing. They're not involved. They're not being seen. They're just getting their license and really not doing anything. And
and you can't, the other advice I'd have to give people too is with social marketing, you can't, as you know, I mean, you just said that with your kids in school, you've done one deal in 4 years out of parents at the school. You can't count on sometimes the people that really know you. You have to find people who you're like-minded with, who have nothing to do with you. Yeah. You might have a common interest like scuba diving or something.
When I think about what happened, Christine, it was, I had a focus that I made a decision that we were going to generate business from the internet, and it became such a focus for me. And I think energy flows where attention goes. It was just like, I'm doing this because I need my time to be with my kids, and I don't want to be just to get business and be out every single night if I'm not doing a deal. So I just got really, really focused on an area. And then I think it just worked because I was focused,
Right. Yeah. Well, that's
on that area. I think it would have went well that area. Right. Like, I think there's
you never know. You never know, but you know what? You're not old. You've got another 10 years. You could expand now that you've got the internet down, you can expand the social marketing.
Well, I'm 46.
Marry them together and it'll be fantastic.
I'm 46, and this business does create lots of gray hair, so and mine's coming. I appreciate you very much. There's very few people that I know that have been in the business 30 years and maintain a level of production that you have maintained.
Well, you have to love it. I mean, I tell young agents as well, if you look at this as a job, it's not a job. In my world, it's a lifestyle. I mean, another little adage, my husband and I have gone to the same event in almost 30 years of being together as well, in the same car, probably 5 times. We always drive independently. He always says at the ballet, he's got the most expensive coat check beside him because I usually have to leave halfway through. Well, why should he suffer? So it's a lifestyle. And I believe in beck and call. I get lots of compliments. I call people back quickly, whether it's an agent or it's a client. If I get a phone call, if I don't call you back in 5 minutes, I'm praised. It plays on me because, again, time is the only thing you can't buy. And if these people took the time to call me, I want them to know I'm serious about them as well.
That's great advice. And that little piece of advice right there is that it's a lifestyle. You are all in.
I am 100% all in. Absolutely. I go away. As I said, I dive. I've never dove in Canada, although I did say to my friend, you might have to go to Lake Ontario diving because I won't be going anywhere soon. That's a little bit scary. But even when I go away, I've made a promise to my husband. We take 1 trip a year where I do not take my phone and I do not go on the internet for, say, 3 weeks. But every other trip that I take, I'm working. I'm accessible to my clients and I'm working because I do care and I want to know what's going on. I love it. I enjoy it.
It comes across, to be honest with you. And,
thank you.
And speaking to you gives me a little bit of it gives me some juice too to say, you know what, we're here to serve. We're here to help. We're here to impact people's lives in a positive way. And that kind of communication, I think sometimes that the industry itself doesn't do a good job in promoting that we really do care. We're trying to help you not make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, I hate to think of what's going to happen with all just the emailing of offers and everything else. And people aren't being, explain the clauses properly. Like sometimes the youth just says, well, this is the clause for home inspection. This is the clause for this. This is the clause for that. Well, the market might be changing and a vendor take back may become something that's going to happen. I don't think in my market, but in a lot of markets, I mean, you're in a different world. There's all sorts of things that you have to sit down and explain it. And, just firing off something for Authentisign or DocuSign, and they fire it back and they think, oh, I bought a house. And then there's problems later. That's not really a great thing.
No, it's not. It's not.
I think it's a labor intensive, it's a time intensive industry to explain it properly.
I think it is. And I think, what I do like is like Zoom now. At least I can have a conversation with someone face to face. Say, listen, there's the paperwork in front of you. Let's go through it line by line.
Exactly.
And so this is what I'm taking away from you today, Christine. One, you have to love what you do. You have to be all you have to niche down into your market. Socially, you have to love people. And
yes. If you're an introvert, not the business for you.
Not the business for you. Okay. I do appreciate it. You know what I'm fascinated by is how important farming and paper marketing is still such an important part of this business.
Well, I probably cut it back by 50%.
Okay.
But it's still an important part of this business because, again, I'm at a great stage in my career because a lot of my peers now are say my age group, I'm 63, are looking to downsize. Now, their kids are 30 to 35, so they're recommending me to their kids, but I've been in their life anyway because I was there when the parents bought their second home. And then my main spheres, their parents are going into long-term care or have passed or whatever. So I've really got 3 pots that I'm playing in right now. I've got the youth who are fantastic and crazy and texting me all the time. And I keep saying, hey, I wake up and I'll respond at 4:30. Please don't text me at 11 o'clock at night. You're not getting an answer from me, but I will text you back when I wake up in the morning. And sometimes I get up at 3 because I am a bit of I love my mornings. And then the people that are my age, they pick up a phone and call, and they call me about their parents' houses. So it's a fascinating age to be in this business, and to have the track record behind me. I'm getting a lot of cred from 3 different levels of business.
That's right. Right. And the last thing I'll take away is that you're in this business for the long term. It's not a 2-year plan.
Well, I can tell you, jokingly, I said to someone after the first 2 weeks of COVID isolation, I went, this is the only thing I can tell you about COVID. The silver lining is I am never retiring, ever, because I'm not a retiring person, and I don't like this isolation thing. I'm out driving all the time. My husband can tell I'm an hour at home, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for a drive. I saw a house come up, on Wainwright. I'm going to go look at it.
Right. Right.
And he's like, you just want to get out. I went, absolutely. I can't stand it.
I agree with you completely. Well, I appreciate you so much. You've added a ton of value to me, and I know you've added a lot of value to our listeners when we launch this out into the marketplace. Thank you so much for being a professional.
Well, thanks for thinking about asking me. I mean, I was sort of chuffed.
Well, no, I mean, like, one of the reasons, I'll give you 2 reasons why I wanted to do these type of podcasts. One is I'm genuinely curious why someone's performing at a certain level. There's so many people in the real estate industry that don't perform. It's an 85 to 87% churn rate every 5 years in our business. So I'm always, why are they doing? What's happening? Mm-hmm. Secondly, the level of professionalism in our business needs to rise. And there is a select few group of people that are performing at a very high level that are extremely professional. And I believe their voice needs to be heard, because I think other agents need to hear this.
Well, I'm honored to be in that group, hopefully.
No, absolutely. So listen, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing what you do every day. Thank you for sharing some of your story with us. And if anyone wants to reach out to you if they have any questions, may they do that?
Absolutely. First off, if anyone wants to be my administrator, please, God, I'm interviewing. I mean, and it's not that I'm difficult to work with. I believe people should have a lifestyle. My last administrator got 4 weeks off a year. I have summer hours. You leave at 3 on Fridays. I mean, I'm a fun person.
You may have to go virtual next, though.
Oh, well, I'm going to figure out how to do these virtual open houses, but I do need an administrator to pick up the paperwork. I mean, it's ominous for me because I'm doing it all myself and for my team.
That's right.
So, but they can reach out, Christine at ChristineSimpson.com. Send me your email, send me your CV, licensed, unlicensed, great. If you drive, yay. I'm really desperate.
Got it. Well, I appreciate you. And definitely there's going to be quite a few thousand people are going to hear that. So,
maybe they want to move to Toronto.
I'll move back down and join you. Who knows?
Please.
Thank you so much, Christine. Have an amazing day. And I look forward to connecting in person.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you've heard and you're interested in seeing if you are fit to work with Peak Results Academy, here's what I want you to do next. Head over to peakresultsacademy.com/call. That's peakresultsacademy.com/call and book an appointment to speak with our team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 45 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, what do you really want out of life and your business? Number 2, what is not working for you today? And number 3, the exact strategy you should be using to create massive change in these areas. Remember, changing your life and creating massive results does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen. We're helping clients all over the world create peak results in their health, in their businesses, and in their personal lives. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to peakresultsacademy.com/call. We'll chat soon.